Jon-Mark Patterson, the Reactionary Hippie, back again. Late September 2020, interesting year. As a reactionary hippie, I try to get deep, point to timeless trends, not get bogged down in current news. But it is September 2020, so I've got to make some comments about the upcoming presidential election. And I feel bad about this because for years people would say every election, this is the most important election ever. And I would say, really? Is it like 1800? Regime change? Democrat, Republicans coming? Okay. 1860, where the country was coming apart, 4 different candidates running, sectarian. I was kind of a history nerd on this question and made fun of people for saying, this is the most important election ever. This is an important election. It's kind of a watershed one, and I have some reasons for thinking so. So I'm going to comment on it. I think I'm going to talk about how we got here and the phenomenon of Donald Trump and what Trumpism is. And then in a different video, I'm going to comment on what's happened recently in the dynamics of the election and what we can expect on election day and month, foreshadowing. And then I'll talk about what's happening beyond the election and what the trends are going to be no matter what happens in that election. One thing I want to say here first is on Facebook, and well-meaning boomer friends will sometimes point to something that's going on. They'll post an anecdote about another statue being knocked down, or here's some idiot pro athlete who just found out about it last week that America was evil and he's pontificating about it, and they'll point and sputter at that and say, when is America going to come back to its senses? When are we going to have common sense? And I just want to say, no time soon. Sometimes countries, societies go through moments like this where what you thought was common sense doesn't exist. So stop it. Stop pointing and sputtering. Stop just throwing those memes out there and saying, when's it going to change? Because it's not. Start looking at the direction things are going and what's going to come next, and don't be surprised by it. Because the fact is, I think we're in a revolutionary moment, and there's not going to be common sense as some people have known it for some time. Common sense will reassert itself someday, but that's another story. So, I'm going to talk about Donald Trump and what I'm going to call Trumpism. What do I think of Donald Trump personally? I mean, mostly I'm indifferent. I knew of him since the 80s. I was never a fan of his books. I didn't read The Art of the Deal and wear a red tie and study how to take over companies and build buildings and things like that. I didn't watch The Apprentice. I never bought a Donald Trump product. The whole loudmouth celebrity blowhard type was never my thing. But despite the messenger, he was the only one actually speaking the message I wanted to hear back in 2016. It kind of makes me cringe still with the late night tweets, but let's start with this. Is there bipartisan agreement? There must be some praise for the man who stopped both the Clinton dynasty and the Bush dynasty in one election cycle. I mean, to just cripple Jeb Bush, who was so entitled he thought he should win the election, and Hillary Clinton the same way. No, that's a service to America to end the Bush and Clinton involvement in our politics. We're a republic after all. Okay, what did I think Trumpism was in 2016? And why, yes, I admit it here, why did I vote for him? I think it's because he was the only one saying what a lot of us were thinking, that globalism was getting long in the tooth. It wasn't 1946 anymore. That the agenda of globalism wasn't serving America's interest, and in the end wouldn't serve the world's interest. We needed a reset from this stale consensus of neoliberals and neoconservatives that we'd always have foreign wars, for no apparent purpose. We would supposedly have free trade, which usually meant the United States getting taken advantage of by other countries. We would offshore manufacturing and deindustrialize the country, and that made our financial elites happy for the short term and the profits they could generate, but it was gutting our industrial capacity and the blue-collar core of the country. And they liked mass immigration too, because that drove down wages further, and it put externalities in the towns where many of the immigrants came, and the schools. The people in the gated communities got new restaurants and made more money. So I liked the way he identified these problems. He said unfair trade and deindustrialization were actually destroying America and its communities. The blue-collar wages were disappearing. The blue-collar jobs were going offshore. And that made a national security problem as well. He noted the elephant in the room. He said China is the biggest threat to the United States. We have to stop giving them an advantage. We have to stop the 20-year consensus that just leaving them alone would make them into some sort of liberal democracy or something like that. We had to actually compete with them and understand the challenge that they pose to the United States. I like that he was skeptical about foreign wars and our overreaching international commitments. I thought saying we need to slow down mass immigration, control illegal immigration was important. We have to bolster working class wages. We have to preserve some cultural continuity and absorb new people, not just create this mass society in the United States of people with no connection to it. I believed in reindustrialization and domestic infrastructure projects, all that great stuff. Healthcare was kind of the holy grail, I thought. Are we going to fix the corporatism and the burdens on small businesses that Obamacare imposed? I don't know. And I think also it was this way he sometimes crudely just loved America. I mean, he just seemed to embrace it. He loved to make weird comments about how beautiful everything was and got up there on the stump and all that stuff. And maybe he was crude about it, but at least he was, in contrast to his predecessors, he didn't love America conditionally. I couldn't forgive the Obamas for the way they acted after Barack Obama was elected. And Michelle Obama said, well, the American people have finally done something I'm proud of. The way he acted like this country was beneath him until it did the decent thing and elected him president. I never liked that. I didn't like the way Hillary Clinton singled out the deplorables, almost half the country. I didn't like the way Mitt Romney singled out 47% of the country as not worth talking about because they were lazy or something. I guess, they couldn't tell capital gains from a passive activity loss. Just that tone-deaf feeling of elites. We're always going to have elites governing us, but at least Trump seemed to have some commonality with them, like he actually met them in the street once in a while or hired them for a job or something. They got to be fair. I mean, Bill Clinton was like that, right? A president who actually seemed to love the country and knew something about the people in it. So, who likes Trumpism? And who doesn't? I think Trumpism is for people who are connected to where they live. They put real communities first. I'm not a citizen of the world. I actually live here. This is where I'm from. This is where my family comes from. This is where my children will probably live. I think they come in all types, like the coalitions in both parties do, but it's fair to say Trumpists on average are people with a little less formal education. They might be skilled in trades or run small businesses. Obviously, you've all seen the electoral maps. They live more in the heartland than on the coast. Important fact is they are more likely to be married and have children. I think people who have children have a little more stake in the future and where they live in real places. Who hates Trumpism? Well, start with this. The elites in both political parties And they want abstractions like free exchange of capital and labor because they want to maximize profits and efficiency. The bottom line is, if I can do it the cheapest, in the cheapest place, and make the most money and skim the most profit off, that's what I want. And that's kind of why immigration is such a wedge issue in the country. The elites in both parties want mass immigration. Now, I'm not against modest levels of immigration and integrating those people into our country, but mass immigration unites elite Democrats and elite Republicans both. The elite Democrats are playing identity politics. They want more people in the right tribes, and they want more votes that they think will be long-term Democratic. The even more cynical elite Republicans just want lower wages and more profits. They don't want strong blue-collar workers. They don't want strong unions. They don't want the middle and working classes to have leverage. They don't want more and more of our productivity and the share of wealth in our country go to wage earners. They want it to go to their profits. So if they can bring in a stream of people competing for lower wages, they love that. Skim off the profits. So if you're against Trumpism, if you're one of those people in the elites of the parties, what do? Well, the problem is Trumpism's popular. Lots of people think we should stand up to China. We should stop going to stupid wars. We should trade fairly with the world. We should reindustrialize. We should have a reasonable immigration policy. If you ask people about those things across the board, the majority say, yeah, I kind of like that. So what do? You don't attack Trumpism, you attack Trump. You say, okay, I'm going to use my resources to pay the media, and I am going to tell all these influencers to say Trump's the problem, yeah? And all these people who are mass followers, who think they're great thinkers, think they're individualists, think they have come up with all their ideas on their own. No, these are just people who are following the consumerist world vision, the globalist vision of, I'm not from anywhere, but I'm important. So if you take your corporate approved ideas and you apply them, then you'll be fine. Those people are told not that Trumpism is bad, but that Trump is bad. They have to demonize this man. And we've seen this. We've seen it for 4 years. Trump is the locus of all evil. Every day your 2 minutes hate should be directed at him. One day we're going to tell you it's Russia. Another day it's Ukraine. Another day it's some subordinate of his we got to testify. I don't know. Sometimes it's some 23-year-old accusation of inappropriate conduct that happens to show up right before the mail-in ballots hit people's mailboxes. Just grab whatever's at hand, run it to the ground, see if anything sticks, try to destroy Trump, I still can't believe that we ran this impeachment process and it sort of disappeared in the memory hole and Trump survived it, and now we're talking in the world of COVID-19, but that's another story. Getting too long here, but I will tell you one local anecdote because you've all seen the national news about the hatred for Trump. Local guy here, a friend of mine on Facebook, I mean, we're real people. So he's a total lefty who cannot write Trump out on a Facebook post. It's not Trump ever. It's Drumpf, something like that. Or he writes wittily, Republicans. Every post is like that. He has decided he's going to become a TikTok adopter. This guy's older than I am. Okay, I mean, I'll tell you, but I think I'm probably a better dancer, to be honest, but. He loves TikTok because Trump criticized TikTok. Now, it's quite plausible that TikTok is supported by the intelligence apparatus of the Chinese Communist Party. And our president has pointed that out, and we should think about that. I mean, not saying the CIA hasn't done things like that, but that might be another topic. But really, do you want to support an information gathering application by the Chinese Communist Party? Yes, you do. As long as Trump is against it, you're for it. That's the kind of thing we're dealing with. So, talk too long. But I think it was important to explain what Trumpism is, I thought, versus Trump and his not perfect character. So that's a preview of what I want to go and say in later comments. So we'll call this a three-part thing, I think. Despite Trump's flaws, I don't think I was crazy. I don't think you were crazy if you voted for Trumpism. And I think a lot of people, when they think they hate Trumpism, they really hate Trump. One of the problems is there's really no one behind Trump to continue to deliver the message of Trumpism, but that's going to be a later topic. So I think my next commentary is going to be about the forces that have marshaled to remove Trump at any cost and some of the things that have happened in the run-up to the election. And then I'll probably talk about the election itself, what will happen in the aftermath of that. So, what do you say these days? Sorry, boomers. There's no common sense coming back. It's a revolutionary moment. And I contradict myself, but this will be one of the most interesting, that's an understatement, one of the most important presidential elections ever. And I hope to keep talking about what that means. So the Revolutionary Hippie needs to sign off. I'll be back for more. Talk to you soon. Thanks.